My mother's voice was calm, like she was ordering coffee, not erasing her own daughter. "The Harrisons don't want you there. You'd embarrass Emily." My hands trembled. Days later, standing in my aunt's living room, I heard her announce to everyone, "Amanda's always been the useless one." The words cut through me. No one defended me, not a single person. 36 years invisible. 36 years silent, but they never knew who I really was. And on my sister's wedding day, I made sure they finally found out. Have you ever been erased by the people who should love you most? The stories on this channel are created solely for entertainment, educational and storytelling purposes. While some stories are inspired by real situations submitted by viewers via email, most details have been fictionalized, combined, or altered. My name is Amanda Lopez. I'm 36 years old, and I'm a senior partner at Mitchell & Associates, one of the most respected strategy consulting firms in the country. But my family doesn't know that. To them, I'm just the daughter who moved away and never quite mattered. I left Phoenix the summer I turned 22. I packed everything I owned into a used Honda Civic and drove 14 hours to Chicago without looking back. I told myself it was for opportunity. The truth was simpler. I needed to stop waiting for my mother to see me. For the past 14 years, I've built a life my family knows almost nothing about. When I visit Phoenix, once maybe twice a year, I stay at a hotel. It's just easier, I tell them. I wear jeans and plain sweaters. I rent a basic car. I let them see a modest life because I learned long ago that showing them anything real only invited disappointment. They never asked about my work, my apartment, my achievements. And eventually, I stopped offering. My mother's favoritism wasn't subtle. It had roots deeper than I understood as a child. My father left when I was 3 years old. I barely remember him. Just fragments of voice, the smell of coffee. But my mother remembered everything. She told me once during an argument when I was 16, "You have his eyes, his stubbornness. Sometimes I look at you and I see him leaving all over again." Emily came 5 years after he left. A new relationship, a new start. Emily was the child untainted by my mother's failed marriage. She was the proof that things could be different. She was special because she was supposed to fix everything. And I was the reminder of what went wrong. Growing up, I learned the rules without anyone saying them out loud. Emily's feelings came first. When I won a full scholarship to Northwestern, my mother skipped the award ceremony to attend Emily's dance recital. When I graduated with honors, the family dinner conversation centered entirely on Emily's new boyfriend. I learned to expect nothing. And eventually, I learned to share nothing. That's why my family doesn't know I'm a senior partner. They don't know about the companies I've helped save, the strategies I've built, the respect I've earned. They know I work in consulting. They assume I'm doing fine. They never dig deeper, and I stopped inviting them to. But 8 months ago, something changed. Emily started calling more often. She asked about my work, what I actually did, what kinds of companies I worked with, what projects I was handling. I was so hungry for connection that I didn't question it. I told her about my biggest success, a major logistics company on the verge of collapse. I explained supply chain restructuring, turnaround strategies, the industry language. I thought she was finally seeing me as a person. I should have noticed the pattern sooner. 3 years ago, a potential client at a conference mentioned that Emily had connected us. He said she seemed very knowledgeable about business. I was confused. Emily had never shown interest in my career. I dismissed it. But looking back, there were other moments, her dates who knew oddly specific things about consulting her friends, who asked detailed questions about my work. Small things, easily explained. Until now. The call from my mother was brief. "The wedding is in 3 weeks. The Harrisons are very particular about image. They don't want you there. Emily agrees it's for the best." That was it. No apology, no hesitation, just erasure delivered like a weather report. A week later, I flew to Phoenix anyway for a family gathering. I don't know what I was hoping for, maybe that someone would say it was a mistake. Instead, I walked into my aunt's living room and heard my mother telling relatives, "It's not like Amanda contributes anything, she's always been the useless one." Across the room, Emily watched me. She didn't look embarrassed or guilty. She looked relieved. For 36 years, I thought I was invisible by accident, just the daughter who didn't matter. But watching Emily's face in that moment, something cracked open inside me. I wasn't overlooked. I was being erased, and my sister was holding the eraser. I flew back to Chicago the next morning, but I couldn't outrun what I saw in that living room. Emily's face stayed with me, that look of relief, when our mother called me useless. It played on repeat in my mind during the flight, during the cab ride home, during the hours I spent staring at my ceiling, pretending I could sleep. 2 days before my sister's wedding, I lay in bed at 2 in the morning, and for the first time in my life, I decided to stop looking away. I've spent my entire career analyzing companies, finding patterns that others miss, uncovering problems hidden beneath polished surfaces. I've saved businesses from collapse by seeing what no one else wanted to see. But I had never once turned those skills toward my own family. That night, something shifted. I opened my laptop in the dark of my bedroom, the screen casting blue light across my face, and I started looking. I realized almost immediately how little I knew about the man my sister was marrying. My mother had only ever called him Daniel, a businessman. No last name, no company, no details. When I asked once, she deflected with that cruel little laugh of hers. "You'll meet him at the wedding. Oh, wait, I suppose you won't." I had accepted that answer because I was used to accepting scraps. But now, sitting alone in my apartment with nothing left to lose, I wanted to know who this man was. I opened Emily's social media and scrolled through months of carefully curated posts. Everything was aesthetic, soft lighting, expensive restaurants, vague captions about love and gratitude. She never tagged him directly in photos, never mentioned his full name. It was almost like she was hiding him. But then I found it. A tagged photo from a mutual friend taken at some charity gala. The caption read, "Emily and Daniel Harrison, CEO of Harrison Logistics Group." I stared at the name until my vision blurred. Harrison Logistics Group. I knew that company. I knew it intimately. 18 months ago, Harrison Logistics was 6 months from bankruptcy. They were hemorrhaging money, losing contracts, watching their legacy crumble. My firm was hired to save them, and I led that project personally. I redesigned their entire supply chain. I rebuilt their vendor relationships from the ground up. I created the turnaround strategy that brought them back from the edge. I worked 80-hour weeks for 6 months straight. I poured everything I had into that company. I never met Daniel Harrison face to face. All our communication went through official firm channels, emails, and conference calls with his executive team. But I remembered the video call at the end of the project when Harrison Sr., Daniel's father, personally thanked me. He called me the woman who saved our family's legacy. They sent me a crystal paperweight afterward, engraved with the company logo. It still sits on my bookshelf. My mind started racing through the timeline, connecting dots I had never thought to connect. Emily visited me in Chicago 10 months ago, one of her rare trips to see me. She had wandered through my apartment, commenting on things, picking up objects. She had noticed the Harrison paperweight on my shelf. She asked what it was, and I told her. A gift from a grateful client, a logistics company I helped turn around. I didn't think anything of it at the time. 2 months after that visit, Emily suddenly became interested in my work. She started calling more often, asking questions she had never asked before. What is strategy consulting really like? What kinds of companies do you work with? What was that logistics project about? I was so desperate for her attention that I answered everything. I told her about supply chain restructuring, turnaround strategies, operational efficiency. I used industry terms I had spent years mastering, and she listened like she was taking notes. I checked the dates on Emily's social media. Her first post with Daniel appeared 8 months ago, exactly 2 weeks after her last phone call to me, the one where she asked about turnaround strategies and supply chain optimization. Emily didn't stumble onto Daniel Harrison by accident. She researched him, she targeted him, and she used my own words to make him fall in love with her. I worked through the rest of the night with the same cold precision I bring to every case I analyze. I took screenshots of Emily's social media posts, captions about logistics innovation, and operational excellence using terminology I recognized from my own presentations. I compared dates. Every spike in Emily's sudden business knowledge coincided with a phone call where I had shared details about my work. I pulled up my own calendar, my personal notes, the timestamps on my emails. I was building a case from public information and my own records. I didn't need confidential documents. I just needed to see what had been in front of me all along. And then I found something worse. A comment thread on one of Emily's posts where a friend asked why her sister wasn't in any wedding photos. Emily's response made my stomach turn. My sister has some personal struggles, mental health issues. She's not really in a place to be around Daniel's family. It's sad, but we're respecting her boundaries. Mental health issues, personal struggles. Emily had been telling the Harrisons that I was unstable, that I was unsuccessful, that I was someone to be pitied and avoided. This wasn't just exclusion. This was preemptive destruction. If I ever showed up, if I ever tried to tell the truth, I would already be discredited. The crazy sister, the unsuccessful one, the one whose words couldn't be trusted. Emily had made sure of that. And suddenly, I understood why Daniel had never asked to meet his future wife's only sister. Emily made sure he didn't want to. I closed my laptop at 4 a.m. My hands were shaking, but not from anger. The weight of what I had discovered pressed down on me like something physical. My sister hadn't just stolen a few ideas. She had studied me like a case file. She had harvested my expertise like a crop and built an entire relationship on the foundation of my work. The woman Daniel Harrison fell in love with, the smart business-savvy woman who understood his industry, who spoke his language, who seemed to genuinely appreciate what his family had built, that woman didn't exist. She was a character, a performance. And I was the unwitting author of every line she spoke. I sat in the darkness of my apartment and asked myself the only question that mattered. What am I going to do with this? I could say nothing. I could let the wedding happen, let Emily have her prize, let Daniel marry a ghost. I could go back to being invisible the way I had been for 36 years. Part of me wanted to. Part of me was terrified of what would happen if I spoke up. My mother would hate me. Emily would deny everything. I would be the villain, the jealous sister who ruined the perfect wedding. But another part of me, the part that had built a career on uncovering hidden truths, knew that I couldn't unknow what I knew. Daniel Harrison was about to marry a lie. His family, who had thanked me for saving their company, had been told I was worthless. And Emily was standing on a foundation made entirely of stolen pieces of my life. I couldn't go back to sleep. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen it. The only question left was whether I had the courage to do something about it. I found out the answer to that question on the morning of the wedding. I woke at 5 after barely 2 hours of sleep, my mind still churning through everything I had discovered. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m. Phoenix time. I had less than 9 hours to decide what kind of person I was going to be. I spent most of the night writing emails I never sent. The first one was angry, full of accusations, and demands the kind of message you write when you want to hurt someone the way they hurt you. I deleted it before I finished. The second was cold, just facts laid out without emotion, but it felt hollow, like I was filing a report instead of exposing a betrayal. The third was petty, and I'm not proud of it. I deleted that one too. The fourth, I couldn't even bring myself to read back. But the fifth was still open on my laptop when I woke up. I had read it 20 times already. It was professional, clear, true, and I still didn't know if I had the courage to send it. I made coffee I didn't drink and sat at my kitchen table watching the sky turn gray through my window. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over. Did I really want to do this? Did I want to be the person who destroyed her sister's wedding? Part of me said no. Part of me wanted to close the laptop, go back to bed, and let Emily have her fairy tale. What did it matter to me? I had my own life, my own success, my own future. Why not just walk away? But every time I tried to convince myself to stay silent, I came back to the same image. Daniel Harrison standing at an altar, making vows to a woman who didn't exist. Building a life on a foundation of stolen words. Promising forever to a performance. He was about to marry my ghost, a character constructed from pieces of my expertise, my language, my career. And he had no idea. I thought about Harrison Sr., the patriarch who had thanked me on that video call 18 months ago. He called me the woman who saved his family's legacy. He sent me that crystal paperweight as a token of genuine gratitude. And now his son was about to marry the sister of that woman, the sister who had been described to his family as mentally unstable, professionally unsuccessful, someone to be pitied and avoided. The Harrisons had no idea who I really was. They only knew the version Emily had created. A desperate, struggling woman whose words couldn't be trusted. If I sent a message to Daniel directly, it would be easy to dismiss. The crazy sister finally showing her true colors, trying to ruin the wedding out of jealousy. Emily had already laid the groundwork to discredit me. But Harrison Sr. was different. He knew my face, he knew my voice, he had seen my work save his company from collapse. If I reached out to him, he wouldn't dismiss me. He would verify. I rewrote the email one final time and addressed it to Harrison Sr. The subject line read, "A professional matter regarding your son's wedding, Amanda Lopez, Mitchell and Associates." I chose every word carefully. Mr. Harrison, my name is Amanda Lopez. I was the lead consultant who directed your company's restructuring 18 months ago. I'm also Emily's older sister, the one she described to your family as mentally unstable and professionally unsuccessful. I don't expect you to believe me without verification. I'm simply asking you to verify. My LinkedIn profile, my firm's contact information, and my credentials are attached. So are screenshots of Emily's social media posts about business expertise dated and sourced. I believe you'll recognize the concepts. They came from your boardroom. I wish your family well regardless of what you choose to do with this information. I read it one more time. Then I hit send. The timestamp read 6:47 a.m. I didn't know what would happen next. I imagined Harrison Sr. waking up checking his email over coffee the way executives do. I imagined him reading my message, remembering my face from that video call, pulling up the attachments I had included. My LinkedIn profile would confirm who I was. The screenshots would show Emily's posts, all those captions about logistics innovation and operational excellence with timestamps that matched our phone calls. The terminology would be familiar to him because it was the same language he heard in his own boardroom when I was presenting the strategy that saved his company. All he had to do was verify. One phone call to my firm's managing partner. One conversation that would take less than 2 minutes. I didn't know if he would make that call. I didn't know if he would believe me. All I could do was wait. I learned later what happened in Phoenix that morning. Harrison Sr. woke at 7, as he always did. He read my email twice before setting down his coffee cup. The name Amanda Lopez triggered something in his memory. The sharp-eyed consultant on the video call, the woman who spoke with such precision about saving his family's company. He opened the attachments. The LinkedIn profile matched the face he remembered. The screenshots showed his future daughter-in-law using language that could have come directly from his boardroom presentations. He made one phone call to the personal cell of Mitchell and Associates managing partner, a contact he had kept since our project together. The conversation lasted 90 seconds. Yes, Amanda Lopez was the lead on your account. She's one of our senior partners. Is there a problem? That was all Harrison Sr. needed to hear. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. At 11, Harrison Sr. pulled Daniel into the church's private study and showed him everything. I'm told Daniel's first reaction was denial. There had to be an explanation. His second reaction was anger. How dare this woman interfere with his wedding day? But his third reaction was the worst, doubt. The kind of doubt that seeps in slowly and poisons everything it touches. Daniel confronted Emily privately in an adjacent room. She tried to explain, but her explanations contradicted each other. She started crying. "I just wanted you to see me as someone special," she said. And Daniel asked the question that ended everything. "Is there anything about you that's actually real?" Emily couldn't answer. Daniel walked out of the room without looking back. At 1:45 in the afternoon, Harrison Sr. addressed the waiting guests. His voice was calm and controlled, exactly what you would expect from a man who had handled corporate crises for 40 years. "The ceremony has been postponed due to unforeseen circumstances. We thank you for your understanding." The guests began to whisper. Emily emerged from the side room with mascara streaking down her face, chasing after Daniel, calling his name. My mother followed, demanding to know what was happening, who had done this, why everything was falling apart. The Harrison family exited through a back door. There were no screams, just whispers, confusion, and the slow collapse of something built on sand. I was sitting in my Chicago apartment when it ended. I had made tea an hour earlier that had gone cold on my table. I tried to read a book, but couldn't focus on the words. At 3:17 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't look at it. The message read, "This is Daniel Harrison. I don't know how to feel about you. Part of me is furious that you did this on my wedding day, but most of me knows that if you hadn't, I would have married a stranger. I'm sorry for what you were told about your family. I'm sorry I believed it without question. Thank you for giving me the truth before it was too late." I read those words twice. My hands were trembling. I didn't respond not because I didn't care, but because I didn't have words for what I was feeling. Relief, grief. Something that might have been vindication and something that might have been loss. I put down my phone and finally let myself cry. The tears I cried that afternoon were not the last. In the days that followed, I learned that exposing the truth doesn't bring the closure you imagine. It opens doors you didn't know existed, and not all of them lead somewhere you want to go. 3 days after the wedding that never happened, my phone rang. Emily's name appeared on the screen, and I almost let it go to voicemail. Part of me wanted to ignore her forever, to let silence be my final answer. But another part, the part that had spent 36 years hoping my sister might one day see me, answered anyway. I expected manipulation. I expected lies, excuses, maybe even threats. What I got was something rawer. Emily's voice was hoarse, like she had been crying for days. She wasn't apologizing. I don't think she knew how. But she was unraveling in a way I had never heard before. "You have to help me fix this," she said. "Tell Daniel I just admired your work. Tell him I exaggerated, that I got carried away. You can make him understand." I listened to her breathing on the other end of the line. "Did you," I asked, "exaggerate?" There was silence, a long, hollow silence that told me everything. Then Emily spoke again, and for the first time in my life, I heard something real in her voice. I needed this, Amanda. You don't understand. You've always had something real. Your brain, your career, your sense of who you are. I've never had anything that was actually mine. Even when Mom called me special, I knew. I knew I wasn't. I just didn't know how to be anything else. For a moment, I saw my sister clearly. Not as a villain, not as the golden child who stole everything I should have had. I saw her as something sadder, an empty person who learned to fill the void with stolen pieces because she never developed anything of her own. It didn't excuse what she did. Nothing could excuse it, but it explained it. I took a breath and gave her the only honest answer I had. I needed a sister, Emily. I needed a mother who saw me. I needed to not be erased so you could feel real. I needed plenty. You just never noticed. She was still crying when I hung up. A week after the wedding, my mother appeared at my apartment in Chicago. I opened the door and found her standing in the hallway with her coat buttoned wrong and her eyes red from sleepless nights. It was the first time she had visited me in 4 years. For one brief moment, I let myself hope she had come to apologize, to finally acknowledge what I had endured. But she didn't come to say sorry. She came to blame me. "You've destroyed this family," she said before I could even invite her in. "Your sister's life is ruined. Her reputation is gone. Daniel won't speak to her. Are you satisfied now? Is this what you wanted?" I stepped aside and let her into my apartment. I walked to my laptop without saying a word, and I showed her everything. The timeline I had built, the screenshots of Emily's posts, the dates that matched our phone calls, the terminology she stole from my presentations. I showed her the pattern that had been invisible to everyone except the person it was stolen from. "Did you know?" I asked. "Did you know she built her entire relationship on my work?" My mother stared at the screen. I watched her eyes move across the evidence, the dates, the proof that her golden child had constructed a life from pieces that didn't belong to her. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she looked at me with something I had never seen in her face before. Not guilt, not apology. Something closer to resentment. "You always had to be the smart one," she said. "Even now, you couldn't just let her have this." I felt something crack inside me. Not break, I think it had been broken for a long time, but crack like a wall finally giving way. "I let her have everything, Mom. My childhood, your attention, every holiday, every graduation, every moment that should have been shared. I let her have all of it. The only thing I kept was my work, and she stole that too." My mother left without apologizing, but she didn't blame me again. And as she walked out the door, I saw something in her face I had never seen before: uncertainty. Like the story she had told herself for 30 years might have cracks she never noticed. A week after my mother's visit, my Aunt Linda called. She was my mother's sister, and we had never been close. But her voice on the phone was gentle in a way I didn't expect. "I tried once," she said. 10 years ago, I told your mother she was being unfair to you, that she was treating you like you didn't matter. She didn't speak to me for 18 months after that, so I stayed quiet. I watched what was happening, but I stayed quiet. I'm so sorry, Amanda. What you did wasn't cruel. It was the first honest thing that's happened in this family in decades." Other relatives reached out in the days that followed, quietly, carefully. Not everyone, some sided with my mother, some pretended nothing had happened. But enough people called, enough people sent messages that I realized something I had never known. I wasn't as invisible as I thought. People saw what was happening to me. They saw the favoritism, the dismissal, the way I was treated like an afterthought. They just weren't brave enough to say anything. For 36 years, I thought no one noticed. It turns out they all did. They were just too afraid to speak. The consequences for Emily came without any effort from me. Within 2 weeks, her job disappeared. She worked in business development, managing relationships with logistics companies, including Harrison Logistics. When the Harrisons cut all ties with her, her entire client portfolio evaporated. Her position was eliminated. She wasn't technically fired, but the effect was the same. The wedding deposits were non-refundable. My mother lost thousands of dollars on a ceremony that never happened. Daniel blocked Emily on everything: phone, email, social media. Mutual friends quietly distanced themselves. The carefully curated online presence Emily had built, all those posts about business expertise and industry knowledge, now looked exactly like what it always was: a performance without substance. I didn't orchestrate any of this. I simply told the truth once to one person and let the chips fall. Lies require constant maintenance. Truth only requires a single moment of light. I thought I would feel triumphant watching everything collapse. I thought there would be satisfaction in finally being seen, finally being validated after all those years of invisibility. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. I called my therapist for the first time in 6 months. I did the right thing, I told her. I know I did. So why do I feel like I'm the one who lost something? She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because you did lose something. You lost the hope that maybe one day they would see you on their own. You had to force it. And that's a kind of grief." I cried for the second time since this started. It felt different from before, less like relief, more like saying goodbye to something I had been holding on to for 36 years. The hope that my family would eventually love me the way I needed to be loved. That grief stayed with me for weeks, but somewhere in the middle of it, something else began to grow. Not happiness exactly, more like clarity. The fog of hoping and waiting and wondering if my family would ever see me started to lift, and what remained was simpler. My life, my choices, my future. 2 months after the wedding, my Aunt Linda sent me a text message that changed everything. "Your mother found your company's website, saw the partner page. She's been calling everyone in the family." I stared at those words for a long time. The secret I never actively kept, just never volunteered, was finally out. My family had discovered who I actually was. Not the struggling daughter they imagined. Not the modest woman in casual clothes who stayed at hotels when she visited. They found the real Amanda Lopez, senior partner at Mitchell & Associates, one of the most respected strategy consulting firms in the country, one of the youngest partners in the firm's history, a woman with a salary in the high 6 figures who owned her Chicago apartment, outright no mortgage paid off 3 years ago, someone who got recruited regularly by Fortune 500 companies, who spoke at industry conferences, who mentored young consultants building their own careers. The useless daughter, the unsuccessful sister, the one who didn't contribute anything. It turned out she was the most accomplished person in the entire family. They just never bothered to look. 3 months after the wedding, an email arrived from an address I didn't recognize at first. Harrison Sr. I almost archived it without reading. I wasn't sure I wanted anything more to do with that family, even the parts that had treated me fairly. But something made me open it. "Ms. Lopez," he wrote, "my son made a serious error in judgment. But his error doesn't change what you did for our company. Your work saved Harrison Logistics. Without you, there would be no company for him to lead. I would be honored to offer you a consulting retainer, and I would be equally honored to recommend you to anyone who asks. You deserved better than what happened. I'm sorry my family was part of causing it." I read his words twice. Then I wrote back politely and professionally declining the retainer. I didn't need their business. I had plenty of my own. But I saved that email. Not as validation. I had stopped needing external validation months ago. I saved it as evidence, proof that the people who actually worked with me, who saw what I could do, always knew exactly who I was. Only my family had been blind. My mother called on a Sunday evening 4 months after the wedding. Her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it, quieter, like she was speaking from somewhere far away. "I looked you up," she said. "I read about the companies you've helped, the awards, the articles. I didn't know Amanda. I didn't know any of it." She paused, and I waited. I had spent 36 years filling silences for her, making things easier, smoothing over awkwardness. I wasn't going to do that anymore. "I've been thinking," she continued, "about everything, about your father leaving and how I treated you after and how I never—" She stopped, started again. "Can we start over? Can we try again?" I took a breath before answering. I spent 36 years trying to earn love that should have been given freely. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not closing the door on you. But I'm not pretending the last 3 decades didn't happen either. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with seeing me, actually seeing me, not apologizing once and expecting everything to reset, not asking me to forgive Emily so family dinners won't be awkward. Really seeing me as a whole person for the first time. That's going to take time, and it's going to require you to do things differently than you've ever done them before. Are you willing to do that? The silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing. Finally, she said, "I don't know how. I don't know if I can." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "That's honest, at least. Call me when you figure it out." 6 months after the wedding, I started something new. I began mentoring young professional women, particularly those who came from families that didn't support them. Women who were told they weren't smart enough, weren't special enough, weren't worth investing in. I didn't share my sister's name or my mother's. I shared lessons. "Your value isn't determined by whether your family can see it," I told them. "Some people will never look closely enough to know who you really are. That's their loss, not your failure. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop being the foundation for someone else's fake life and start building your own real one." My apartment is quiet these days. My life is full. I started dating again, tentatively, carefully, learning to let someone see me without waiting for them to look away. I call my Aunt Linda every Sunday. I'm planning a trip to Portugal, something I always wanted to do, but never made time for. I stopped checking the family group chat months ago, the one that went silent after the wedding. I don't need to know what they're saying about me anymore. For the first time in my life, I'm not performing smallness to make anyone comfortable. I'm not hiding my success to avoid making anyone feel bad. I'm not waiting for permission to exist. I sit on my balcony on spring evenings now, watching the city lights flicker below me. My phone shows missed calls from my mother, 3 this month alone. I'll call her back tomorrow. Maybe. I think about Emily sometimes, somewhere in Phoenix, trying to rebuild a life she never actually built in the first place. I don't wish her harm, but I don't feel responsible for her healing anymore either. Daniel sent me one more text last month. He said he's been in therapy trying to understand how he missed so many signs. He said I changed his life not just by telling the truth, but by being the kind of person who does the work quietly without needing credit. I didn't respond to that message, but I smiled when I read it. I think about my mother too, struggling to see her daughter clearly after 36 years of looking the other way. Maybe she'll figure it out. Maybe she won't. I've stopped making my own peace conditional on her growth. Mostly I think about myself, the girl who learned to be invisible, the woman who became undeniable, the daughter who finally stopped waiting for her family to see her and started living as though her own vision was enough, because it is. It always was. For 36 years, I was the invisible daughter, the one who was fine on her own, the one who didn't need attention or celebration. I thought staying small was staying safe. I thought silence was peace. I was wrong. Silence isn't peace. It's permission. Permission for people to write your story without you. Permission for lies to become comfortable. Permission to be erased by the people who should have seen you most clearly. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not small anymore. For the first time in my life, I'm the author of my own story. And this time, I'm writing it in ink. Thank you for listening to Amanda's story today. Her journey teaches us something important. Your value is never determined by whether the people closest to you can see it. Sometimes the ones who should love us most are the very ones who refuse to look. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the reliable one who got taken for granted, know this: staying silent doesn't keep the peace. It only gives others permission to erase you. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to take up space. And you are allowed to stop shrinking so others can feel tall. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss our new stories. We would love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever experienced something like Amanda did? How did you find your voice? Share your story with us. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.
Khổ rất là từ từ nè. Chị có lấy màu đấy không? Hay lấy màu khác? Em lấy màu này.
Em lấy màu xanh. Đây đây đây, đúng rồi. Chính nó.